Hello, I'm Tan, the TamBoTC channel, and I want to talk about RPGs. I had a problem earlier. I'm going to be live streaming soon, a blind playthrough, me playing the game without my glasses, since I need my glasses for far, to be able to see things far away, where I'm nearsighted, but I need glasses for farsighted. Farsight or whatever the hell you want to word it, or however it's said. Things are blurry to me from further away. So I'm going to be playing the game kind of like that. And funny enough, I've been playing the game weirdly better, blindish. I don't know how that works. Maybe I'm just getting lucky. But I'll be doing that soon after this. But since I don't have the screen to show, that's right, I wanted to figure out last time. Also, my PlayStation frickin' stopped on me. I don't know what's going on. I want to go for a computer, but right now, because of the stupid stuff going on with my PlayStation, it's making me want to just get a PS5 and say, okay, I know it won't give me the same problems that this PlayStation is giving me, so it's gotta. Like, if it did somehow, as well as I'll be able to play games like Baldur's Gate 3 and such, finally. So, yeah, there's those too. And it's just been ridiculous. And, yeah. But there's so many things too. I have a feeling that it might still take a while to get a PC. Yeah, it's just been freaking stupid lately. I really wish it wasn't. Hopefully I can get something going. I wish I could sell my old Alienware PC or whatever. Yeah. So let's see. What was it that lets me two-hand something? Where is two-handing? Let's attack. RH. Wait, R8? What? How do I two-hand? Am I missing something here? What the hell? I'm totally missing something. What? What? I haven't played this in forever. Oh. Oh. Okay, there we go. You can probably put the shield away. Anyways, I want to talk about RPGs. So I made a video recently on Luke Stevens. Note that I love his content. I actually find him and a couple other YouTubers to be replacements for Angry Joe, because Angry Joe has been kind of, honestly, a little stupid lately. He's been attacking a lot of YouTubers, and while those YouTubers aren't always the brightest in the stuff that they approach, or they have problems of their own that make them... I am fat rolling as hell. That is great for a first character to be doing. And my controller just disconnected. What is going on, bro? Stop. Stop doing this crap. Equipment. Shut up. I should just replace frickin' there. I'm no pants man. There. But since I can't show you the screen that I went to pick a vagabond, so there are different layers to role-playing, and that's... oh my goodness. So there are different layers to role-playing. From what I gather from people like Luke Stevens, at least the way he words things and executes how he words things or talks about things with an RPG, and how like Bethesda games aren't RPGs even, don't agree at all. There are many different role-playing games, And it seems people assume role-playing... Can you please... Frick you. I hate spear characters. They're frickin' assholes. Play with your body. Like, it seems people assume that role-playing is only in dialogue options. That is not true. That is one layer of many. And I kind of like it when a role-playing game isn't always the same as others. Then they just start to all blend. It's kind of like how a lot of third-person shooters are taking up this very similar mechanics and looks. Like if you put an image of third-person gunplay in Resident Evil Remake versus, say, Last of Us and Uncharted and stuff, they all look very similar to one another. They're all using a very similar control setup. And I feel like a game feels unique. Like the Bethesda games, they have that charm and stuff. I even think Starfield, to an extent, has this. It does feel more disconnected traveling from planet to planet, and there are ways to eliminate loading screens with a better SSD card or whatever. L321 YouTube channel explained this better than I. Or equally the same, I don't remember. I'm just gonna chop this guy down. I know I can stealth through it, but I just want you to die. But yeah, like there's this is Soldier Godric. He's in there somewhere. Yeah, I think he's to the right more. But can't wait for those frickin' things to go away. There are also other ways that role-playing plays a part, and that is also in your actions. I feel like because a whole lot of people don't have the attention span, or maybe time gets away from them, or maybe they want to rush the game. You can also do certain aspects of the game, like if you don't like exploration, then go do side quests. Maybe that's more your thing, or main quests. People seem to think that role-playing is only within the dialogue, when role-playing is thrown right at you from the beginning when you choose a class, as well as a race and such, and what benefits each race has even. And frick off. Asshole. But yeah, a lot of people assume that dialogue is the only thing that makes a role-playing game. That's not true. You play a role, and this had to be understand, especially when Actman was talking about Diablo 4, and somebody said Diablo wasn't a role-playing game, and he had to go with the sarcastic remark, gee, I wonder what role I should play in this game. So there's even times where you mix two different classes, like you could be a barbarian paladin or something interesting, or a sorcerer, or a sorcerer rogue, or a thief or something. And the games complement, like Skyrim, complement through guilds and stuff and factions your playstyle. But you could also use cosplays as an example of this, as well as role playing in other ways too, where you can role play by contributing both in your skills, or say like you go into a game like Fallout New Vegas or any of the Fallout games, or even Starfield. You want to be a space cowboy, you can put your attributes towards something involving revolvers, a revolver skill or something, or handgun, and use mostly revolvers. Maybe if the game presents like a Winchester rifle or something to you, or rifles that would match the time period of being a cowboy. That's one way to roleplay, as well as you can roleplay as a raider in Fallout, or Brotherhood of Steel Knight, or something else. You could be Shadow Scale, a special Argonian, unique Argonian assassin for the Dark Brotherhood in, say, Skyrim or something. And there are different weapons, armor sets, outfits, or whatever that, as well as abilities and skills that complement that. Or you want to be a boxer. I was using my Deathclaw Argonian character in some of my latest Skyrim playthroughs, where he's mostly like uses fists, and there's both skills as well as outfits with enchantments on them that complement my fist build, as well as even races, because I know that Argonian and especially Khajiit have claws, and they do extra damage with melee, with fists only or whatever. There's some games that don't always complement everything, but there are others that do, and I feel like it does a pretty decent job of that. I think I only have one sword stone. Oh, no, I do have two. This is probably a dungeon I don't think I want to do yet, though, because there's a really ridiculous boss at the end of it. So, yeah. We can come back to that later. But there's, because of the classes, skills, the way you can play or cosplay even. I have an Arnold Schwarzenegger character. You could be Grognak the Barbarian or the Silver Shroud cosplay. Sometimes even the dialogue can help to make you role play in that way, because I remember there's some Silver Shroud dialogue you can have too. And there are weapons to complement one another. Like if you want to be a raider, you would wear a raider related outfit and use mostly pipe weapons maybe in Fallout 4 and kind of role play that way. There's a lot of ways that these games present you with ways to play. Even YouTubers like Juve and Camelworks and ESO and such show you these many different ways, and even I made videos entirely based on the concept of what I'm talking about now. Role-playing has layers to it. It isn't just in dialogue, and I feel like people only assume, or they don't have time nor the patience or to play it by rushing the game or something, or whatever they may do. Maybe you're going to a Dark Souls playthrough and you're a newer player and you only want to you use the very weapons and armor that you had from the very beginning and just play the rest of the game like that, with barely learning how to upgrade and so on. There are people who do that too. So I feel like, and there are games that sadly complement this laziness and that condition people to some of this laziness. I feel like, once again, Cyberpunk feels like a game like that to me, where it kind of conditions you to some of that laziness. It's got very fake RPG elements for all the stuff people talk about with Bethesda games and so on, where they're using flirt written right next to some of the dialogue options or whatever. Like, honestly, Cyberpunk's technically worse with the hand holding in many ways. Not only can you have the dotted line, and the same arguments can be made like for Cyberpunk as for Skyrim, where you can get rid of this stuff in just the options menu, but you know most people probably aren't, and not everybody is gonna play exactly the same way and such. Or like if you play the game in a crazy, ridiculous, over-the-top way, that's shows how skilled you are at it. Not everybody's built the same, as well as any game you can demonstrate such crazy things in. So I don't think it's entirely something new. And Cyberpunk, because, and even Actman's videos really ages well, because you're mostly V, there's no gangs or factions or corporations that you can join, but are established and you know exist in the world of Cyberpunk, but you can't necessarily join because the game makes you roleplay specifically as V, and that you know that unless you get the DLC, everything that you're working towards means nothing, and those endings suck. And most of the limitation of any kind of changes that may or may not happen within the story or such are within the boundaries of the missions, whether main missions or side missions. Scripted stuff, basically, where enemies are very spread out and you have to mostly antagonize everybody yourself. You have to be the first one to shoot, like Han Solo. Or if you want to be a dickhead, you can say Greedo. But you have to push that. And since they still don't have things like a day and night cycle, and they still don't have NPC civilians that attack back, or store owners that are more interactive. Like the store owners, if you punch a store owner or whatever, or antagonize one, in Skyrim, they will literally sometimes pull out a weapon and start beating the crap out of you. And the civilians will not always hesitate. Sometimes they'll run away, sometimes they will not. Same with store owners. They actually do stuff. Where most of the time they either go in their cowardly position or run away. And it's most of the time you have to aim down the sights. I remember Asmongold had a video too, where he had his clickbait title saying, "Oh, the AI really impressed. The NPCs really impressed Asmongold," and it's like the typical walk past a certain point and then certain dialogue will activate from a character NPC. And that's basically what Cyberpunk did with that scenario he found himself in, and a lot of scenarios, honestly. And I feel like while other games, even Bethesda games, do this, they find a way to do it naturally and a little bit more unpredictably. For example, you're not always I barely seen a lot of the dialogue situations I got into recently, where I actually saw I went through the market of Riften and Medesi actually walked away from his stall to go talk to somebody, and it was like, wow, I barely see anything like that. Or at a certain time of day, when I go into Helga's bunkhouse, there'll be certain NPCs in there, and then different NPCs will have different conversations with one another, because not always are those same NPCs there. But when they are, you have a new conversation, or at least what you see as a new conversation pop up. You don't really get that with Cyberpunk, and even if you do, most of it is scripted due to a certain point, doesn't come across all that natural, or just doesn't happen. There's a lot of problems with Cyberpunk. I honestly think Cyberpunk would have benefited more if it had joinable factions and stuff. Even Starfield has a joinable gang and almost double agent mission between the Crimson Fleet and the UC, where you can screw things up. And you can tell that they're scared. Bethesda was scared to do multiplayer games, and them doing the kind of stuff with Fallout 76 and such didn't really help that. I just think they approached it terribly, honestly. But they've apparently been asked to put multiplayer in the games ever since Morrowind, even. And that's kind of why Maik says some of the multiplayer dialogue that he does. Because they've been constantly, people within their community have asked for multiplayer, and they're probably now scared to even do that. Hence, some of the stuff they did try to do. I just think they did it wrong, as well as they did get very greedy and disgusting in hiding certain things and such. I will say Luke Stevens is definitely right on that stuff. But I can kind of see the perspective, because they've been asked this for years now, and you can see that's what they did 76 in the first place to but people want it for Skyrim even. Like, I would learn from Baldur's Gate 3, Divinity Original Sin, and Skyrim together how to do that. And I would probably do a more cooperative multiplayer rather than like massive online, or what Fallout 76 is. 76 is close, but it's still missing a lot of things, a lot of aspects, and especially back when it launched. Not only that, but glitches. But yeah. There's many different layers to role-playing. It isn't just in dialogue. It is also in your skills, how you play, and you, just like what the developers are able to do with the game, have your own barriers too. You are another barrier to that role-playing aspect. If you decide to not experiment around, or you don't want to play a certain way, or you just want to rush the game, then yeah, you're not going to, you're just creating another barrier for yourself. You are that other barrier for the role-playing. And games complement it, whether or not. And I used the Mages Guild from Oblivion versus Skyrim, for example, where while there's only one location where the mages take place in specific characters, they do have a focus, and they do help you get to know those characters. They stick with you more in the Mages Guild, as well as that story and even its antagonist. And they actually have quests that complement making you actually use spells, whether for something small or a bigger focus. And you do puzzles with it. It actually, just like the Greybeards, they actually make you do magic, where I think you can mostly just use a sword, do melee or bow and arrow stuff or whatever for all of the mage guild missions, basically for all the different mage guilds you go to in different cities and with different characters, and it's not quite as focused. Where the Dark Brotherhood and Thieves Guild in that game is, it starts to be a mess. While it has a cool freaking reward at the end, it doesn't have a whole lot of focus, and the one time the game actually tells you to use magic is for one of the worst puzzles in the game, in my opinion. And yeah, like, even if you don't like that Skyrim only has one place, even Morrowind, it's like, in order to progress and be able to level up within the guild itself, you still have to level up how much magicka and willpower and such you have. And you're still going to find yourself using magic more often within quests and such of Morrowind. It does have its tedious moments and stuff here and there. Honestly, the ironic part is while Morrowind is held to the same standard as like Fallout New Vegas sometimes, and loved just as much, it's honestly more tedious than Skyrim and Oblivion even, ironically. And yeah, but it's a really good game nonetheless because of its goddamn great writing, and I've made videos on that as well as a couple other things that could contribute to what I'm saying here. But yeah, there are things that complement being able to play a different build and such, and and there are different types of RPGs, like games like, once again, Witcher, Cyberpunk, JRPGs mostly have you as a specific character, even Deus Ex, where you are just that character, but you role play more through the options. Same can go with Mass Effect, and then you got games like Dragon Age, and of course Baldur's Gate and such, where there's more going on there. There's both role playing in the actual role that you play, but also in the dialogue options. But a lot of people seem to think or forget that there's more layers to an RPG than just dialogue. And that's kind of how I feel like at least the execution and wordage from people like Luke Stevens, and how people are probably going to take it that way, especially since he has such a big audience, that they're going to just think the specific way, sadly. Like, you can't always help control that, though. And I kind of hope that never happens with me. Because I want people to think different ways. Yeah, and that's why I usually try to end my videos or conversations with saying you make up your own mind and opinion. And even if I forget to, I try to make it clear in some other ways. But yeah, as well as you should just know to do that off the bat. But there are people out there that do exist like that, but not everybody thinks like that, of course. But yeah, that's basically it. I said a lot of good stuff in my previous, as well as especially in my description to my debunking Luke Stevens on Bethesda games. I have a feeling people are gonna look at that video and be like, "Oh, what a Bethesda fanboy!" I love Bethesda games, I do, and maybe I am technically a fanboy, but am I no more based or wrong on what I said? Even when I read the stuff to my friend, everything I said, even being someone he doesn't really play Bethesda games, he was like, based answer. So even from that point of view, if you're not a frickin' Bethesda fanboy or whatever, you can still see that point of view, because it's not just complimenting and trying to argue the point that Bethesda games are RPGs, but also for other games, because there are layers to those other games, and Bethesda is one of the ones that I'm using for the example, because people forget and seem to only think that dialogue is where an RPG is only an RPG from. And that is just not true. I mean, you can technically, if that's the case, then I guess World of Warcraft isn't an RPG then. So yeah, have fun with that because technically World of Warcraft doesn't have the same level and layers to its dialogue that something like Fallout New Vegas or Baldur's Gate 3 or whatever has. So does that make it not an RPG? Then it's just MMO. So what then? That's why I find that a little silly that people, and especially after watching Actman's video, and a lot of stuff Actman says in his Cyberpunk video, while some of it doesn't age well, there's a lot of it that ages well. I thought originally the video talked more about the glitches, but once you get into the later half of it especially, it goes into all sorts of things that just nail down the problems I have with Cyberpunk in comparison to other RPGs. It feels like a fake RPG. It's lacking in a lot of areas. It feels like it's conditioning you to play this supposed RPG in a more simplistic manner. You got color-coded dialogue. You got the little markers on the map, and my friend hates the map and thinks that it's really terrible. I honestly do too. Like, Cyberpunk is something that looks great on the outside. Like, that city looks really cool, Night City, but on the inside, in the actual feeling as you play, is really underwhelming and lackluster. It's like on the surface, it looks fantastic. There's ways that the game, not just in the look of it, but other places that kind of trick you, whether you believe it or not, once again. But yeah, I'll be making a Cyberpunk video. I want to dedicate one last Cyberpunk video. There'll probably be a couple others before that last one, but I honestly think Cyberpunk's one of the worst AAA open world RPGs in the world. And that's not entirely true because there are objectively worse ones, but it's one that's famous that is the worst. And yeah, it's even Ubisoft games do certain things better than Cyberpunk, because where Cyberpunk is lacking in its as an RPG, it is very lacking as an open world. It's either empty, you have to antagonize most of the enemies. Most of the stuff that actually makes it feel more layered is within the scripted stuff. It either does more tell rather than show, or talks more of the what to you rather than the why of a situation. The first person perspective kind of harms it. The color-codedness of the dialogue, as well as even the things that say Street Kid or Nomad next to it, or have a symbol next to it that indicate certain things. The fact that where you're heading in the main story, unless you buy the $30 DLC, is mostly heading to trashy endings, and feels like you haven't really gotten anywhere, and you have to realize this all had to be fixed within 3 freaking years. So it feels kind of weird to dunk for someone like Luke Stevens to only dunk on Fallout 76 as much as he has, even still today, with mentioning that stuff. And yeah, that stuff should be mentioned, but to completely forget Cyberpunk technically did a lot of the same stuff too. Maybe not nylon bags and such extent, but they did a lot of the same garbage stuff. And they did it multiple times. They even did things that Bethesda didn't do too. Like, even while they were advertising Phantom Liberty, they were blaming the fans and the consumers for the original state of the game it was in. And I believe Angry Joe back in the day, as well as Yangi, covered this. And yeah, I can't believe that. And they apparently did it twice, because they also did it when the game launched too. And they were all sorts of bragging about how amazing their game is. And I think because Cyberpunk is a game that can play to those traits of people that have little attention span, or don't have time to play it a specific way, or they have jobs and stuff they want to do, or they can just focus on the multiplayer. Another thing I want to bring out that frickin' Luke Stevens says was where he was talking about how aspects like the building settlement stuff, you can completely skip the settlement stuff too, by the way. You don't even need to really engage with Preston. You can just go to Nick Valentine or something, and just get things going, or go to the Brotherhood of Steel, whatever. You don't even need to talk to Preston about that stuff. And you don't even need to worry about building much. So that is not as big a deal as people make it out to be. And isn't that no different from side quests or side activities and stuff that would, as well as just adventuring and exploring around in general? It's no different. That would distract from the main storyline too. And I also think it would be boring to play the perspective of your son/father in Fallout 3 and 4, because it's like, unless you write it a different way, isn't your father get eventually trapped in a VR section halfway through the story? And he's like, technically he's trapped there before parts of your story and adventure. So technically he's trapped there longer than any kind of fun you could be having. I don't feel like he's having as much fun. You would probably frickin' hate that. Technically your adventure is better than your father's. It's just that he's voiced by Liam Neeson. No. And the father gets kidnapped, your son, in Fallout 4. And he's probably restricted to only staying within the limits of the Institute, their little place there. So it would be boring to play a whole game within the restrictions of just the Institute area instead of going outside freely and doing stuff. I'm sure maybe he was involved in some of that stuff, but at the same time, it feels like that's not fun. So I think his utilizing that as a perspective was kind of silly in his video, when I could just say what I just said. And think it doesn't feel like Luke Stevens thinks enough outside the box, so to say, with certain things. Or that he has his own little box that he's already focused on in what he wants to say. So, but you have to open up, brah. Open your goddamn box. But yeah, there's more layers to role-playing and such than just dialogue. And I feel like the execution, as well as the way people word certain things, seem like they only say that dialogue or side quests or something is the only thing that makes a game an RPG. No, it isn't. People forget this. There were so many things when he was reacting to the Todd Howard goes over his history with games video that I had so many problems with that were just described in this video now, as well as the previous debunking video. So, as well as in the description of the previous debunking video. So there's clearly things missing there. So, yeah, whether you believe that stuff or not, or whether you think I'm a fanboy or not, that does not matter. What matters is there's layers to RPGs. Even ones that people either block out, don't know about, or forget entirely, or just don't have time for. There's many different ways and layers to that as well, to a person's life. And you are the barrier or blockade or whatever to a role-playing game. You and the game have your own barriers, and you can break those down if you choose or want to. So, yeah. That's pretty much all I have to say. This video probably went on for too long. I'll see you guys next time. I hope you enjoyed nonetheless, and bye.